Hi, Chris Duff over at Serious Land Capital, vacant land funding partner. Sunday here, again, try to get more into the mindset perspective. Actually, continue to just focus on this day in and day out about my own psychology, again, especially in a more difficult macro environment when it's so easy to get into that, paralysis and being frozen in your tracks. Not, you know, there's always uncertainty in any business, even on in massive bull cycles. But, I think everybody feels it a bit more, especially when there's, again, even more volatility, uncertainty, what have you, negative sentiment within a market like this. So, it's more important than ever to just stick with what is driving results, adapting as needed, evolving, and figuring out what are the strategies and tactics and the actual day by day steps that are going to get you and your business to where it needs to be. So, to me, this kind of paradigm, it comes down into the, rejection versus regret matrix here. And the way I think about it a lot is just, in kind of cultural language, no one ever cares that you sucked at something before you got good at it. Like as soon as you're good at something, all of those past mistakes, you sucking for however a long period of time, like all that's just off the table. It doesn't matter anymore. And I think we're so, you know, oftentimes so scared of pursuing possible new avenues and worried about I'm going to be rejected, people are going to be judging me based on what I'm trying, and ultimately that doesn't really matter um, on both sides, because if you end up succeeding, you're going to reap the rewards that come with that. And even if you don't figure it out and you still suck at it, like who cares about those people's opinions anyway? All that matters is that you either figure out what you're trying to do or you figure out a different route to get to where you need to be and stop sucking in a different dynamic to eventually achieve the results that you want. Um, and yeah, and, you sapiens it's a pretty common paradigm to think about, but it always bears worth reminding of, again, like all of us humans alive today, we evolved with the deeply embedded genetic tendencies toward, uh, you know, fear of the unknown and fear of uncertainty and so forth. Like that's kept us alive through, hundreds of generations, thousands, maybe millions of generations since Homo sapiens came to be. Versus those of us who, died off earlier, our ancestors in the gene pool that were less risk averse and, ended up being wiped out. So we have a natural tendency towards protectiveness and avoiding, um, again, possible rejection or, quote unquote danger, even though in today's society, it's largely misplaced fears for the most part. So we always have to overcome that. And, again, it doesn't matter whether you sucked or stunk, you throw in whatever word is in order to get to that next step. And I think the most kind of concrete examples where it's just so evident, I'm a parent of a younger toddler here, so many rapid milestone developments, and any parent can relate to this. Really any human can understand even by analogy here, but and I don't always talk about gross stuff on this podcast, but yeah, I think the example is apt. But when we took our toddler through potty training, close to 6 months ago at this point, it was a huge hassle to get her to stop peeing and pooping in her diaper, and it took a handful of days to really get over the main thrust of that behavioral change. And then, like, as soon as that was done, like, it didn't matter at all that for 2 years of her life, she was using bodily functions and in her pants effectively, and just smelling bad in public, like that was just now in her past. And now going forward, okay, she is potty trained. And so there's just a different precedent that has been set. And we don't hold it against her that, at some point for a couple of years, she was using a diaper. Like you take that and project that forward to all of us as adults here. And like no one cares at all that at some period in our life we were not potty trained. So to me, that's like a very, very stark example. And the parents here definitely can relate to this most fully. And sorry again if some of this grossed you out a bit, but if you're ever considering having kids or you're already a parent, like you learn to have a strong stomach really quickly. There's just no avoiding it. So I think that's very helpful to keep in mind because, again, growth from early childhood years are just so evident. Whereas, adults, it can often be the case where we're just so stuck in similar patterns that we're not necessarily forced to get out of comfort zone and start trying to change or, start trying things new where we're, inevitably we're gonna suck. And, that was another Hormozy quote that I really liked recently where it's like, greatness rejects all first time applicants. It's just by necessity. Like if you really want to get good at something, let alone great or even okay at something, like you're gonna suck right out of the bat. And so I've just kind of embraced that often here. I mean, you see how many different public forums and content I'll produce and get involved in a ton of different deals and within the land space and even within this podcast. Like it's not all, hey, we're making $1 million like every single deal. Like that's not, there's definitely been, I would love that to be every podcast, but that's just not realistic. Trying to share what is also negative too, and then that's also incentive for me. Okay, I need to be even better so that I have less negative things to share as I continue to get, improve my capabilities and results moving forward. But, at the same time, the higher level of game that you play at, you're going to run into more negative issues and you're going to suck at the next level you're at until you know, achieve a new baseline and then you're going to suck again. And it's just an endless cycle, right? But again, no one holds it against me. Like people bring me deals, we're in authority within the space, serious land capital, but again, zero people actually care that when we were first getting into this, like we were, terrible at underwriting deals. We didn't know what we were doing. It took a ton of reps, you know, uh, making mistakes on title issues and, losing money on some various deals here. Like all of that is just understood. I mean, it happens to every operator, but zero people actually care about that, that happened in the past compared to where we're at now as we just continue to put reps in on a daily basis. And again, even if people held that against us, it doesn't actually matter because most people don't care and the results speak for themselves. So even if, people in the back of their minds, yeah, Chris, he sucked in the past and he still is not like doing that good on here, he can be doing better, doesn't actually matter because I know that I'm moving forward, continuing to show up day after day with continued progress. And sometimes it's one step back or 1.5 steps back for every 2 steps forward. That's just like the nature of growth and trying to push yourself. But I know that I'm in the arena and trying to figure out how to be productive and take next steps in order to get better day after day and take back the feedback and just flat out sucking in some things. And again, it doesn't really matter. So even the more like public have become with persona and everything, and again, I try to be more open book. I think that's built a lot of trust, having that sense of vulnerability and the no kind of BSing attitude here, that only serves us going forward in terms of reputation of our brand, as well as not deluding ourselves with thinking that we're better than we are, because that's where, constant mistakes like the route to non-growth actually starts happening when you can't actually take that feedback and continue to get better. So wanted to share some of my thoughts there. Again, something I think about a lot as continue to push. And and this was not always easy. It still isn't easy to do. Everybody's we're social creatures, right? Some level of concern about being judged, and so many years of sitting on the sidelines, trying to wanting to have everything perfect before taking action and so forth. And much to my regret, and lack of earlier results um, in years past. But I try to get better at that day after day, and so hopefully this is helping you hear this. If you're kind of in a similar spot, or wondering whether you should be considering other people's opinions, um, more so than or less so than you actually are. And kind of the cheat sheet answer to that is, yeah, who really cares? No one does, because I can tell you, at least me, considering like a high performer, yeah, if you show me results, I could care less, even if you sucked for 10 years straight in something. Like once you kind of crack that code and prove out what's working, great. That is all that is going to matter. So just keep that in mind. If you're looking for funding, seriousland.capital, zero cost review of your land deals at Land Daily Diligence, Mondays and Thursdays. Also keep in mind, now we only have one hot seat left for that mastermind session myself, Dave Denniston, and Justin Sleva are doing on Thursday, April 17th at 1:30 p.m. Central. So let me know if you're interested in taking that last 45-minute slot to take your business to the next level. It certainly did for myself on Serious Land Capital. And then landpricer.ai for the most simple and accurate way to price land. With that in mind, take care. Bye.